There's growing pressure on the government to intervene to help businesses struggling with soaring energy costs. There are fears some small to medium-sized firms could go to the wall.
Energy prices going up is not what we need. My overheads are already extremely high as it is. And it's a concern, it's a deep concern about the viability of the business.
But what options does the government have to help? We'll take a look. Also tonight. Plunged into near darkness, Lebanon suffers another nationwide power cut. After two high-profile murders of young women, a mobile phone app that can trigger an alert of danger.
To float it in!
And a last gasp chance for Scotland to boost their bid to qualify for the World Cup. Good evening. Business leaders are warning that soaring energy bills for many small and medium-sized firms are unsustainable without government help. The British Chambers of Commerce says the situation is dire and some companies could end up drastically cutting production. A number of Conservative MPs have now joined Labour in calling for ministers to provide financial help. Here's our business correspondent, Katie Prescott.
Our biggest customer is Ocado.
Cooking on gas. These are simmering broth 24 hours a day. There's little this business can do to cut its energy use. Bills recently have been painful.
Energy prices going up is not what we need. My overheads are already extremely high as it is. And it's a concern, it's a deep concern about the viability of the business, and I don't want to pass that cost on to our customers. I'll do everything I can to avoid that.
Businesses don't have the cushion of an energy price cap. They tend to fix their bills a year or two in advance. So for those whose contracts are coming to an end at the moment, it's a really painful time. And it's even worse for companies like this one who don't have those contracts and pay their energy bills on a 3-monthly metered basis.
Industries like cement and glass, with the heaviest energy consumption in the UK, are seeing their costs rocketing. To keep the furnaces burning, they're crying out for government support.
Absolutely right now. Gas prices are at an unprecedented level, and the businesses that manufacture the goods that we need are trying to operate under these unprecedented conditions.
They're backed by some Conservative MPs with these industries in their constituencies.
They need government support, either in direct support or a cap on their energy prices to allow them to continue in business.
But so far that support isn't forthcoming. The government says it's in regular contact with business groups and that this underscores the importance of building a strong, homegrown, renewable energy sector to further reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. For now, even the businesses that supply those fossil fuels are struggling, as what they're paying for gas in the market is more than the amount they can charge under the energy price cap. But businesses like these, facing rising transport costs and taxes, would love to see some sort of similar cap.
I'm doing everything I can to keep this business running. The last thing we need now is sky-high energy bills to top that.
Katie Prescott, BBC News.
Well, our political correspondent Jonathan Blake is here. Businesses are saying they want the government to help and intervene. What can the government do?
I don't get the sense, Clive, that the government is on the verge of any major intervention here, not yet at least. I'm told there will be more talks between ministers and officials and industry in the coming days as they work out possible measures, possible steps to take. As for what that could be, well, the sorts of things industry is asking for, as you heard in Katie's report, a possible subsidisation of wholesale energy costs in the short term, a price cap for business in the long term. Those are expensive measures that the government is being expected to take, and while they're not being ruled out, I would expect any steps to be much more limited in scope. We've seen the government willing to allow domestic energy providers to go to the wall and go bust without any intervention there. So that relatively hands-off approach, I think, will continue. But there is pressure from industry, from some Conservative MPs representing industrial areas now too, worried about the knock-on effects of this crisis. But unless we see lots of jobs on the line or these shutdowns in production becoming unsustainable, it seems it's pressure the government is willing to bear.
Sure. OK, Jonathan, many thanks. Jonathan Blake there. And the Business Secretary, Kwesi Kwarteng, will be one of Andrew Marr's guests on his show tomorrow morning, along with the boss of one of the big 6 energy suppliers. That's at 9 o'clock on BBC One. Now, US officials and representatives of the Taliban have met face-to-face for the first time since the militants took control of Afghanistan in August. America maintains the talks in the Qatari capital of Doha do not signal official recognition of Taliban rule. In Afghanistan, the funerals have been taking place of some of the victims killed in yesterday's suicide bomb attack in the northern city of Kunduz. Around 50 people died, with the Islamic State group saying it carried out the attack on a mosque. Well, our correspondent Yogita Lemay is in Doha for us now. Yogita, the first time both these sides have met, do we have any idea what's come out of the meeting so far?
Well, from the Taliban's point of view, this is part of a series of efforts from the group to try to gain international recognition. They met with UK diplomats a few days ago. Now they're meeting US officials. And Amir Khan Muttaqi, who is the acting foreign minister of the Taliban-appointed government and who's leading the delegation here in Doha, has said they will also be meeting European officials soon. And the reason they want to get international recognition is because it's directly linked to the unblocking of foreign funds into Afghanistan, which have been frozen since the group seized control of the country. But Muttaqi, speaking in Doha, also said that they don't want anyone to interfere in the internal affairs of any country. They are speaking against the backdrop of girls not being allowed to go to secondary schools in most parts of Afghanistan and women not being allowed to go to work. It's unclear whether the US would bring up those issues in these talks.
OK, Yogita, thank you. Yogita Lemay there in Doha. Now, Lebanon's electricity grid has shut down, leaving the country without power for the second weekend in a row. Its 2 largest power stations ran out of fuel amid an ongoing economic and financial crisis hitting the country. Officials say it's unlikely electricity supplies will resume before Monday. From Beirut, here's our Middle East correspondent, Anna Foster.
Careful steps in the blackest of nights. For many, this is the reality of life now in Lebanon. Light and hope are in short supply.
The collector comes at the end of each month to take 300,000 lira from me. And where's the electricity? There's no electricity.
Lebanon's national grid was already weak. When it works, it's only for 1 or 2 hours a day. But for the country's poorest, that's a vital lifeline. People here are dealing with crisis after crisis. And while this blackout wasn't a surprise, it's just another thing to make an already difficult life even tougher. This is keeping the lights on for 300 flats. Those who can pay for expensive private generators. But prices have doubled in the last month, and they're getting harder to afford.
Some people, they text me and they can't, we don't have much money. We're helping them, but it's difficult for us too.
So without all of this, and without you, people are in complete darkness.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
A ship carrying fuel is on its way. It's another short-term solution to an enduring problem. Lebanon's politicians are talking about answers, but this struggling country doesn't have time to waste. Anna Foster, BBC News, Beirut.
Here, the government's latest coronavirus figures show there were 34,950 new infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period, not including cases in Wales. That means, on average, there were 36,665 new cases reported per day in the last week. As of Thursday, there were 6,763 people in hospital with coronavirus across the UK. 133 deaths were recorded. That's of people who died within 28 days of a positive COVID-19 test. Again, the figures don't include Wales. 113 deaths were announced on average every day in the past week. 85.4% of the population aged 12 or over have had their first dose of a vaccine, and 78.5% have been double jabbed. The deaths of Sarah Everard and Sabina Nessa highlighted the dangers women face out alone on the streets. There are a number of personal safety apps on the market to alert friends or relatives of danger, and now there are plans for a phone service from BT. The company has contacted the Home Secretary about its plans, but some campaigners argue such a service doesn't tackle the deeper problem of male violence. Here's Graham Satchell.
More than 6 months after the murder of Sarah Everard, flowers and messages are still being left at the bandstand on Clapham Common, where a vigil was held in her name. Sarah's death and that of Sabina Nessa, killed last month in South London, have led to a wide public debate about the safety of women and potential solutions. BT have now come up with plans for a smartphone app called Walk Me Home. An emergency number, potentially 888, would enable women to have their journeys tracked and an alert triggered if they don't reach home in a set time. The government says it's considering BT's proposal and welcomes working with the private sector, but there are already a number of apps like this. Holly Guard, for example, has been downloaded more than 300,000 times. In an emergency, it alerts a series of contacts, gives a precise location, and automatically starts recording video. It was set up by Holly Gazzard's family after she was killed by her ex-partner.
Our app is for everybody. Anyone who wants to feel extra safe when they're out of the house. It's tried, it's tested, it's been working now for 6 years, and we could put that out tomorrow to the whole country.
Is technology the answer? The co-founder of the campaign group Reclaim These Streets says BT's idea is little more than a sticking plaster.
An app isn't the answer to preventing or ending violence against women and girls. The answer has to be changing our culture that emboldens and enables men to attack women and girls or harass us in the street.
A woman is killed every 3 days by a man in the UK. Campaigners say it shouldn't be up to women to download an app to make themselves feel safe. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
Now, with the day's sport, here's Sarah Mulkerrins at the BBC Sports Centre. Hi there, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Clive. It's been a busy night of World Cup qualifying football. There was heartbreak for Northern Ireland as their hopes of making Qatar look all but over after a loss in Switzerland. England were routine winners in Andorra, and there was late drama in Glasgow. Scotland scored a stoppage-time winner against Israel to claim a crucial 3 points, as Andy Swiss now reports.
Hampden Park is absolutely bouncing.
For Scotland and their supporters, an evening of drama, but ultimately delight. They knew victory would put them in sight of a World Cup playoff spot, and yet it was their opponents, Israel, that led 2-1 at the break. After it, though, Scotland came roaring back. Lyndon Dykes' effort was initially ruled out because of a high boot, but after a VAR check, finally, 2-2. Could Scotland find a winner? Well, in the 4th minute of stoppage time, guess what?
This is huge!
Scott McTominay sending Hampden Park into pandemonium. A 3-2 win that could be crucial. It'll certainly be unforgettable. For Northern Ireland, though, it was a different story. Their tricky trip to Switzerland soon became even trickier. Jamal Lewis sent off after a second yellow card for time wasting, and Switzerland took advantage as they eased to a 2-0 victory. Northern Ireland's hopes of a playoff spot now hanging by a thread. In Andorra, meanwhile, a bit of history, as Katarina Monsell became the first woman to referee an England men's match, and it was one the visitors soon dominated. Ben Chilwell and Bukayo Saka put England in control by the break, and after it they cruised clear. Further goals from Tammy Abraham and James Ward-Prowse before Jack Grealish rounded things off with his first England goal. A 5-0 win and edging ever closer to World Cup qualification. Andy Swiss, BBC News.
There was a thrilling Manchester derby in the Women's Super League as City came from behind to rescue a draw at United. The visitors were 2-1 down late in the second half and also down to 10 players when Ellen White pounced to secure a share of the points. St Helens have won their third consecutive Super League Grand Final. They overcame Catalan Dragons in a tense encounter at Old Trafford, which had the French side bidding to become the first overseas team to win the showpiece event. Stuart Pollitt reports.
For St Helens, this was familiar territory, a third successive grand final. But for their opponents, Old Trafford is foreign soil, 700 miles from home in the south of France. St Helens' Kevin Ngama is soon leaving these shores. This was his farewell appearance, but he took two bodies and the ball over the line for the opening try. Catalan had a pre-match message from someone who knows how to score goals on this ground, Eric Cantona. It was the boot of James Maloney that kept them in touch. 6-4 St Helens at half-time. Catalan needed a catalyst, and they got one when Mike McMeekin latched onto this high kick to score. The French side in front, time slipping away for Saints before Ngama slid in for his second try. Lachlan Coote's conversion would prove crucial, sealing a hat-trick of titles for Saints. Catalan may have captured the hearts of many neutrals, but the sport's biggest trophy stays in its heartlands. Stuart Pollitt, BBC News.
Lewis Hamilton qualified fastest for the Turkish Grand Prix, but will start tomorrow's race 11th on the grid. The championship leader was given a 10-place penalty for breaking engine rules this week. His Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas will start on pole ahead of Hamilton's title rival, Max Verstappen. There is more on the BBC Sport website, including all the build-up to the big fight later in Las Vegas with Tyson Fury taking on Deontay Wilder for the third time. But that, Clive, is it for me.
OK, Sarah, thanks for that. And that's it. You can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel. But from me and the rest of the team, have a very good night.